What's up everybody, Rob here. So I wasn't actually planning on having a video out today, but a new video came out today from Shadiversity and it just piqued my interest and I figured I'd share my thoughts of it with all of you guys. Once again, Shad, if you are watching this, big fan, love your work, absolutely fascinating, and I can't wait for you to put out more. Big inspiration for me. Part of the reason why I'm even doing this at all is because of you, so thank you again for that. Now, specifically, this is about the Gunsword, or how Gunswords would be used throughout history, or that they were barely used throughout history, and people tend to overlook them. And these are really just my thoughts on this. I saw the video maybe like 5 minutes ago, maybe 10 minutes ago, and I did take some notes on a yellow notepad here. And I'm just going to be throwing out my particular thoughts on this. I did not plan this. I have not rehearsed this at all. I don't have a script. I'm just going. I'm going to edit it because why not? I have Movie Maker. It takes like 5 minutes to do that. But I figured I'd just, well, here we go. I'm not good at segues. Okay, so first off, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. They're awesome. Try peanut butter and honey with a little bit of cinnamon. It's great. Not too much though. We want to stay low carb. All right. Now, as far as actual firearms are concerned, I do have, well, I have several, but right here I do have one. It is a real firearm, and for all you gun safety guys out there, it is unloaded. There is no magazine present. You need not worry. It's also important, whenever you are handling firearms in any capacity, you remember the 4 cardinal rules of firearm safety. Rule number 1, firearms should be considered loaded unless you yourself have personally checked it. It's unloaded. There you go. Rule number 2, keep the firearm pointed in a safe direction at all times, or more specifically, do not point the firearm at anything you are not willing to destroy. It's a safe direction pretty much everywhere here, but I'm going to keep it, for our purposes here, keep it pointed in a that way type direction. Rule number 3, keep your booger hook off the bang switch till you're ready to make it go pew. Keep your finger off the trigger till you're ready to shoot. I will be indexing it as much as is practicable. You'll see why in a minute. And rule number 4, be certain of your target, what is behind it, what is around it, and keep in mind bullets do in fact penetrate. So just keep that in mind. So as long as you follow those 4 rules, you'll be reasonably safe. Now, unfortunately for me, I do live in a blue state, so I don't have any first-hand experience with this. But as far as I can tell, actually, yes, the point of... got a spearhead here. It's going to substitute for a knife that you can put on the end. It's the only knife I have of this size that's practical. But yes, if you put it on the front of it, it will reduce the accuracy and will pull it downwards. Now, people, I don't know about on a handgun, about knives or any attachments like that, but I have been told that suppressors do in fact have that effect on the shooting of the firearm and on the aim of and accuracy of the firearm. I live in New Jersey where they are flat out banned. Yeah, I'm lucky I even have what I have now. I mean, I have like all 3 firearms and I'm pretty much an unhinged loon over here, but that's another story for another day. Any case, but yes, having something attached to the end of the barrel is going to throw off your aim. However, I have to say that this is not something that couldn't be overcome with, well, just practice and training. You train enough with it, and if your life did depend on this, I would highly recommend you would train with it. That is, yeah. It would be a problem, but I don't think it's something that could necessarily not be overcome with just practice and training. Now, I want to respond to the point that Shad made about the firearm and the direction of the blade compared to the firearm. Now, again, he said that more often than not, the blade and the firearm would be going in the same direction, and for me, that just makes a degree of sense. I mean, it seems like the obvious thing to do. Now, regards to it being perpendicular to one another, say, example, one of the quillons of the sword being a firearm. I mean, it could work theoretically, but I think there might be some issues with it. Now, this is just me spitballing it. I don't know how practical this would be. Someone would have to test this. Not me, though, and I'll show you why. Now, this would be better suited with an arming sword of some kind, and or something that doesn't have a guard in the way. The only one-handed sword I have has a guard like this, but we got to improvise here, people. Now, the first thing I have to say is aiming. We have to decide, when we're dealing with a gun sword, what is the primary weapon? Is it the sword that has a gun attachment to it? Or is this a gun that has a sword attachment to it? What is the primary weapon? Because if the gun was the main attachment, anything that is a detriment to the operation of the firearm would be, well, a detriment to the operation of the firearm. Whereas if it's a sword as a primary weapon, then the gun is simply an add-on to that, and therefore it's not that much of a priority. So assuming that the firearm is the primary weapon and that the sword is secondary, the first thing I can see here as a problem, and you know what, I'm going to semi-break one of the rules. I'm going to point it directly at the camera. And don't worry, there's nothing back there, all you gun safety guys, don't worry. First thing I can see here, now these are kind of offset from each other because of the nature, but if this was a Quillon, if this was right here, my sight picture is completely screwed up right now. I got this gigantic blade in my way of what I'm aiming at. And it is, yeah, look, I'm a horrifyingly bad shot to begin with. Yeah. Having this big blade in the way preventing me from aiming, it's not gonna be helpful at all. I need all the help I can get, and especially in the stressful combat environment, I can see something like this being absolutely more of a liability than any sort of an asset. Now, you're going to say, okay, well, this would be used at extremely close ranges. And yes, okay, fine, it could be used at an extremely close range. I'm going to share a very, very embarrassing anecdote with you. When I first started training with firearms, the first time actually I went out with a firearm, I managed, first thing I shot was I shot a semi-automatic, then the instructor switched us over to a revolver. I believe it was a Smith & Wesson 627. I want to say it was like 4 years ago. I don't remember exactly. Anyway, it's a pretty meaty firearm for a beginner, but you know, what do I know? Any case, of these 6 shots in the firearm, I managed to miss the target at 5 yards with 4 of them. Now, I don't mean I missed the target. It was a big slab of, sheet of paper with several bullseyes on it. I didn't miss the bullseye. I missed the entire paper. Okay? I'm that bad of a shot. Now, you're going to say, okay, well, you're a naturally bad shot, awkward person, blah, 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 etc. Yes, that is all true. And it was my first time using a firearm. Yes, that is true. With practice and training, I will get better, and I am much better than I am now. I can get a reasonably decent grouping with a reasonable firearm. Not a big fan of the Magnums, but whatever. However, you also have to consider, I was under no time pressure. Nobody was trying to kill me. There was no adrenaline rush. I mean, there was a bit of an excitement, like I'm shooting firearms for the first time. Oh, this is so cool. But like, there's not the of combat. There is no. I had no injuries. Nobody had just punched me in the face or bludgeoned me to death, or there's no sweat pouring out of me or blood getting all over in my eyes or anything else. It's a nice climate-controlled building, well lit, and I still managed to miss. Now, maybe I'll be more skilled, or somebody who is using a firearm in this particular, setup. Yeah, I mean, maybe they're more skilled than I am. Maybe they're more trained, more practiced, but they're also going to be doing it in a very chaotic situation. I'm going to put that down. They're going to be doing so in a very chaotic situation. They're going to be doing so in a very, high pressure environment. So they're going to have this massive liability as far as aiming goes. Trying to get a decent sight picture. And it happens all the time. I mean, I read and watch videos of people who, like in a self-defense situation with a firearm, like a concealed carry guy. He, people will all the time, like, empty the magazine and at like near point blank range and completely miss their target. Okay, I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. This just makes it that much worse. So having a perpendicular firearm like this, with the Quillons being the firearm, it's going to be pretty bad. The other issue is that I have with this, or that I would have with this, and that involves keeping the firearm in a safe direction. Now, this is what I said before about not keeping it in a safe direction all the time. This is going to be kind of awkward because I am holding them together like this, and they're not integrated as a single unit. But just hypothetically, both firearm and yes, it is still unloaded. Don't worry. Keep it in a safe direction at all times. Okay, now here I'm great. I'm pointing it towards the enemy. Just say the enemy's that way. Good. I have a nice hanging guard. That's good. I make any kind of movement, it's going off that way. I parry. Now it's going off in that direction. I just shot some old lady accidentally. And man, my finger's off the trigger, or would be off the trigger at this point, but it's not unreasonable to assume that in the heat of a moment, especially if somebody's, has a sword of his own or an axe or whatever it is, and he's, bashing me as hard as he can, he's trying to kill me, that I would flinch, hit the trigger by mistake, and who knows where that's going. I mean, the Quillons can be moving in pretty much unpredictable directions. Now, maybe it could work as some sort of, I guess, as a way of grappling. Like, while you're half swording, you go for the pommel strike, or, yes, pommel strike, or, Quillon strike, and then from right here, and then, place it right up against his neck or something like that, and bang! Yeah, I mean, that could work as, like, a single-shot novelty thing, yeah. But as a firearm with, multiple rounds that you can put in it, and, like, say, a semi-auto or a revolver, like a double-action revolver, it's simply just not going to work. It's just not going to work. It'll work, but it's not going to work safely. I mean, there's going to be, as you're, just watch any sword fight and just pick one of the Quillons and just watch what directions the Quillons are going in. Now, imagine bullets flying in those directions. It's completely unpredictable. Bullets are going to be going off in the air. They're going to be going. It's entirely possible here. You go for a parry, boom, you just shot your foot off. I just think the safety concerns would make this too impractical. And one other thing too, and then I'm just, again, like I said, I'm just kind of spitballing this. I really haven't really thought about this too much. You are really limited in the mechanism of the firearm, really for any kind of gun sword like this, and that is it's a minor detail, but it's just something that often would get overlooked, and that is the shell casings. If it's a semi-automatic of any kind, the shell casings are going to be flying off of the firearm, and if it's going in odd directions, you're parrying and everything else, and this thing does go off, you are going to get whacked in the face with a hot piece of brass. And yes, that actually has happened to me. I'm a very hapless person. It might be hard to see now. It happened about 1.5 years ago, but there's a little bit of a scar right here. I was at the range, and a bullet bounced off the shell casing, bounced off the baffle between me and the port next to me. Bounced off there, got wedged between my glasses and my skin, and gave me an instantaneous second-degree burn. I've also had it go down my shirt. I've had it, bounce. Would have whacked me right in the eye, actually, multiple times if it wasn't for the fact that I was wearing safety glasses. Really, just It's not deadly. I mean, the only reason why I got any kind of burn on this because it was wedged there. If it just bounces off, it's not going to do anything. But having a hot piece of brass whack you in the face in the middle of a life and death fight, especially if there's a you got your sword out and you're here and then you parry and it goes off by accident. Okay, fine, it goes off in the air. Who knows where it's going to go? And now the shell casing just whacked you right in the face. Again, it's a very minor thing. I don't think it's that much of a deal, but it is something to keep in mind. Yeah. So. I guess ultimately the point of this whole thing is if something works, people tend to keep doing it. And if something doesn't work, if it doesn't catch on, it's probably because it was never a good idea to begin with. Or it's not that it wasn't necessarily a good idea, but it wasn't that practical to begin with, or there were better alternatives that came along. To put it quite simply, like Chad alluded to in his video, really just, it's not a practical thing. It's just a firearm with an attached blade to it would be very large, it would be cumbersome, and it wouldn't be practical. Not bayonets notwithstanding, I mean, that's something else entirely. Yeah, I mean, if it was more practical to have a blade and a firearm together, like a sword and a gun together, people would be doing that. The fact that they didn't is, I wouldn't say proof, but a pretty good indication that it was never that great of an idea to begin with. I actually saw a couple of them. I live right by Patterson, and right there used to be the Colt Patterson Museum, right where the first revolvers were made. They're made maybe like 4 or 5 miles away from my house. The museum has since closed, but I remember seeing a bunch of them there with the attached blades on it, and I just thought that was such a cool thing, a blade, a sword, and a gun together. And yes, I did play Final Fantasy VIII. I never completed it, and I gave away my PlayStation, so I have no idea how it ends, but yeah, I was never really much of a Final Fantasy fan to begin with. But I always looked at them like, that is so cool, yet horrifyingly impractical. Can you just imagine like a full-size sword like of that size and then trying to hold it steady. That is a wrist breaker right there. Trying to hold it steady so you can aim. Yeah, there's not even a sight on it, so you don't know what you're shooting at. It's terrible, yeah. So, but in any case, that's it for the video. Shad, this is a fantastic video, like all your videos are. Fantastic stuff, very well researched, very well presented. Honestly, keep it up. I look forward to your next video that you're going to be putting out. And yeah, everybody else, check out Shad if you haven't. But then again, if you know about me, you probably know about Shad. And if you don't, well, you're missing out. If you aren't already subscribed over at Shadiversity, do so right now. He's awesome. Also, I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the video. The link to the video that he had is in the description box, so check that out as well. Like and subscribe, Shad. He's awesome. And also, while you're at it, like and subscribe to me too, because I'm going to shill. I am totally going to shill. I have no shame. So hit the like and subscribe button. New videos by me will be coming out whenever I get around to it. Shad will be putting out whenever he gets around to it. I have no idea, you know, I don't know his schedule. He doesn't really confer with me on these things. And that's pretty much it. All right, have a good day. Or don't have a good day. You're adults. You can have any kind of day you want. I believe in freedom. I believe in America. See you later. Okay, so now, oh, one more thing real quick before I go. As far as a firearm with a pistol with a knife underneath it, I don't think it's going to be that much of a detriment to have a slashing weapon with it. This is pretty, yeah, it's almost, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of a kukuri a little bit, you know, the way it's like at an odd angle and you can slash downwards with it. You know, it could work. I see no particular problem with this. What I have a problem with, where I don't think is going to work that well, is a stab with this. And that's just the ergonomics of how a firearm is, a handgun specifically, is designed. When you stab with this, the center of balance, or is it, what is it? I don't think it's the center of balance, center of gravity, whatever, the leverage point is above your hand. Now, normally when you use a knife to stab, it's in your hand. Like, the mass of the knife is, you know, in line with your hand, so you can, you know, you can stab with it and it's in line with your arm. You add a firearm to that, your hand is down below it, kind of exaggerating here, but you know, your hand is down below with the knife above it. The weight of the firearm is centered, especially in the, well, this one here is made out of plastic, got metal, got a metal slide on it, plastic, everything else. It's at an awkward angle. So since the weight is up here, yeah, I mean, this can work. I mean, you stab someone like this, yeah, they're in trouble. But because the weight is up here, if it gets caught, any number of 1,000 things can happen in a combat environment. So if this gets, you know, caught on something, or if you guys wearing heavy clothing and it doesn't penetrate, this could easily get ripped out that way. It's just not very ergonomic. Yeah, slashing weapons could work, or as a slashing weapon it could work, but as a thrusting weapon, it's just very awkward to do that. I just can't see that as being a particularly, you'd have to, I don't know how else to describe, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think you understand what I'm trying to get at. I can't really verbalize it that well. It's kind of late today, so, and I haven't planned this at all. This just popped in my head as I was recording this. But, yeah. If it hits something, yeah, it can get ripped out pretty of your hand. It's just an awkward position. You're not really putting a lot of force behind it. And, yeah, if it encounters any resistance at all, it's going to be, you know, there's a lot of give here. So I just don't see it as a stabbing weapon. Cutting, yes. Stabbing, not so much. So for real this time, hit the like and subscribe button. Check out Shad's channel. Hit the like and subscribe button over there. And see you next time.